My name is Hennings Diederichs. I'm a technical manager at the ICAEW. So what I do look at sort of financial reporting and sustainability reporting in the public sector, but I'm also the technical advisor to the UK board member on the IPSAS board. And I know that Malaysia are currently adopting the IPSAS standards. So IPSAS are the International Public Sector Accounting Standards. So this is a topic that I'm really interested in, and when I saw the opportunity to join sort of my fellow accountants at one of the biggest conferences there is, and I've got to admit I've not been to a bigger one, I decided to join, so I've been delighted to be here. Yeah. Public sector reforms, well, there are quite a few. I mean, obviously from a UK point of view, I think one of the most interesting developments in recent years has been the making more use of the whole of government accounts. So we've been producing this set of accounts since 2010, but the politicians and the decision makers haven't been making good use of it. So one of the key areas of work has been the balance sheet review, where in the UK we reviewed all the public sector assets and liabilities, and we split them between sort of core and non-core. Now the non-core assets were sold and the non-core liabilities were settled, but then what do you do with the core assets? So we essentially looked at the effectiveness of their utilisation. So is it right that we own the asset outright? Should it be better maybe to lease the asset? Should we be doing more PFI deals, etc.? We also made better utilisation rates of the office space in government. So rather than different departments having separate offices with a lot of space, we amalgamated a lot of them so that now you're slightly more cramped, but you're making better use of the office building, and the surplus office building then was sold off. And I think in terms of the liabilities, we created a risk profession within the public sector, so to review the risks that the liabilities pose. So in particular, contingent liabilities. So contingent liabilities are often overlooked because they don't sit on the balance sheet. There are off-balance sheet liabilities that may or may not crystallise. And now with the increased financial guarantees that the government has been issuing due to COVID, some of these guarantees and contingent liabilities are really posing quite a lot of risk. So we've created a specific risk unit to look at those and to value them accordingly. Okay, so our session we looked at sort of PFM reforms in the public sector, and I was one of 3 other panelists, including a moderator, and it was a really good combination, right? So we had 1 lawyer, 1 academic, and 2 accountants. So it was a really good discussion. I think for me, the key takeaway really is, when you look at, so the academic from Singapore talked about their whole of government accounts project and the challenges of what an aging population has on public services. So that puts pressure on the NHS, or on the healthcare system, if you like. So I found that interesting, and some really good comments made. I think for me a key takeaway is that at the moment, I think the public sector, after COVID, cost of living crisis, you have sustainability issues coming down our way. I think we are at a bit of a crossroads. We've got to grasp both the opportunities, but also be really aware of the risks that are posed. So I think that's the key takeaway. I mean, opportunities are around, sort of bridging that gap with AI, the technology, solar panels on public sector buildings. Can you change the heating system or the cooling system in this country, obviously, with different sources? So the refrigerants are very polluting, and air conditioning units. The government has an opportunity there to create the demand so that the innovation can really kick off. At the moment, the market isn't quite ready yet for private sectors to invest in these very high-end technologies because there is too much uncertainty, and I think the government is in a unique position now to sort of fill that void to some extent to really kick off the innovation and the changes in technology that we need. How can they prepare? So public sector, yeah, look, We did talk a bit about sort of capacity and capability within the public sector, and there is no doubt it is strained, right? We've had, well, in the UK at least, we've had a number of shocks that have really dented the morale and also the number of staff within the civil service, in particular in finance teams. So starting from the 2008 financial crisis, then we had the self-inflicted Brexit that has caused issues. Then we've had COVID. And now we have the cost of living crisis on the back of COVID, where when demand rebounded to such an extent that it caused all supply issues and inflation has gone through the roof. So that's the background that we're operating in. I think the civil service, I must admit, is generally quite resilient, but we need to do more to learn from the private sector in some of these areas. So in relation to sustainability reporting, for example, the private sector is 2-3 years ahead. Now that, in my view, is not necessarily a bad thing, right? I mean, I know some of my colleagues would like to see the public sector to be the leaders, the innovators, but in the background of the capacity and capability constraints, I think it's good to sort of follow on from the private sector. So to answer your question, I think it's really important to create networks within the civil service to share ideas and to learn from best practice. We here, we at ICAEW, we are putting on some of these events for the UK public sector where we invite, for example, the Finance Leadership Group. These are the finance directors within the central government. We're going to invite them in, and then we're going to convene with the private sector experts in order to share knowledge, share experience, and more importantly, to share the benefits of it. You've got to be able to tell a story to sell it. You can't just look at always the costs and the effort involved. What are the benefits? What are you going to get out of it? And I would like to really to get out of it is a just transition for all. So that means a move to being a nature positive net zero economy by 2050. But it has to involve everybody in society, not just a few.